this is what artificial intelligence is. There is a model, there is a human-like character that has been cloned into a voice, and you can choose what gender you want, what dialect you want that person to speak.
Let's look at Google Maps. I think everybody from a delivery driver to even us, we're using Google Maps, not realizing that a lot of data of how we drive, they know everything, and that's how the models are getting trained. Once upon a time, Microsoft Word introduced spell check for you. Then came Grammarly. So you didn't have to just check spelling, you could check your grammar. Now you could actually change the tone of the entire conversation.
And the skill that is being overlooked is how do you train people better to give better inputs so that they get better outputs from any of these AI-enabled applications.
The science in AI is understanding how does a model work at the back end. How do you get the right output?
What are people overestimating right now?
I think one of the overestimation is that banks, financial institutions, mobility, all of this is just going to have more humans working on it. That's so long.
So Manish, do you think most people actually understand AI or we're just echoing each other?
Most people don't understand. We have a general habit of seeing a trend and following a trend. And this is typical of our behavior overall as a society. We think something is very new, shiny, trendy, and this is going to become the game changer and we follow it. But most people don't understand it. That's the short answer of it. The one quick example I'll give you is, if people think that 10 people are talking about it, the 12th person thinks that it's very smart to talk about AI. So every meeting you go into, every conversation you go into, people say, okay, so what are you doing about AI? What have they been exposed to in AI is largely all generative. People are seeing this as a Google replacement, not understanding that that is less than 5% of the use case that will actually impact their life. They're not seeing the real thing behind the scene.
I think AI became mainstream after OpenAI gave it in the hands of the users, right?
I think ChatGPT kind of socialized AI, so to say. But people don't realize, and I was telling this to somebody the other day, people don't realize that AI was in the making for a long time. How long ago was Siri launched? Maybe like 5, 7, 8 years ago? 10 years?
More than that. 10 years.
More than that.
It's more than
so Siri has been training their model for the longest time. But Siri did not show that as a ChatGPT. It was not in your hand. I was a part of the Alexa team. We've been training those models since 2016, 2017, that time. They've gotten better. Now, just look at time. It's been 8+ years of training a model in India. Now, imagine how much data has been accumulated, how smart it's got. That's what people are just seeing what's on the surface, and people are not seeing the real working, what's happening for a long time.
There's a funny incident you remind me of. My mom was watching a movie, and this was like 7 years ago. There was this guy who was living alone, and he comes into the house and he has Alexa. And he's renamed Alexa to a female, and he's treating Alexa as his daughter-in-law. So his son has passed away. It's a very sad story, but he has developed a bond with Bahu of his.
Yes.
Okay? And he tries to talk and have a conversation. So that was my mom's first brush with AI. So she asked me, this Bahu is real? Or iski atma ghus gayi hai? What is the movie trying to communicate? And that's when I had to explain her in a very simplified way that this is what artificial intelligence is. There is a model, there is a human-like character that has been cloned into a voice, and you can choose what gender you want, what dialect you want that person to speak. And she was amazed. She's like, oh, so this is the work that people do behind computers. And that's what we call information technology. So that was her brush with AI. And you can imagine I'm talking about this incident, say 5 years ago, 5, 6 years ago, during COVID. And where we are now today. So when they ask us something and we say, ChatGPT told us, they now know what it means.
I think the easiest example for everybody to understand is look at Google Maps. I think everybody from a delivery driver to even us, we're using Google Maps, not realizing that a lot of data of how we drive, how we actually even follow instructions from the map, they know everything. And that's how the models are getting trained. So even if I have to drive back home to the same car parking I do every day, I still use maps to the T because my model is getting trained. It takes me actually right to my car parking slot one basement. And it knows exactly that I'll get there, I'll miss this U-turn or not. That's the power of AI. And that's how most people are not seeing behind the scene AI, to answer your original question. People are seeing what they're able to see in this. And some people are even calling it as a replacement for a search engine. Actually, that's oversimplification of what AI can do.
Yeah. So are we really overhyping it or we're underestimating it?
Both, actually. And I'm not trying to put a politically correct answer here. Both. We are overhyping the generative use cases. People are thinking, once upon a time, Microsoft Word introduced spell check for you. Then came Grammarly. So you didn't have to just check spelling, you could check your grammar. Now, you could actually change the tone of the entire conversation. In fact, you are writing a book, I am writing a book, and people who write a lot now know that there are tools specially available to even actually kind of create manuscripts in days what was done in months. So those use cases, I think some people are overestimating, but what they're underestimating is definitely around agentic AI. And when AI gets into production, manufacturing, other use cases, medical use cases, that the potential is just immense. I mean, I think it's an interesting time to be alive. Okay, I'm fading away, but largely this is just going to change the way mankind is.
That's a very popular narrative that AI is going to revolutionize the whole world, change the way we live. But what's the uncomfortable truth? Not many people are talking about that.
There was a skill called creativity, which most people don't. Let me take a simple example. When I was in school, that was decades ago, there was an art student, a commerce student, and a science student. An art student was considered somebody who has got no mathematical brain. They're usually going to be people who study social sciences or finance. Commerce student was about business, and science student was somebody who's going to study pure science, applied sciences. Now imagine what AI will do is a lot of the commerce applications are going to be so changed, transformed through AI. Like most of the use cases that a chartered accountant or a cost accountant or a company secretary would do, imagine what AI would do to their profession. So we're going right back to the school. Now look at the science students, their potential has gone 100 times over. But the art student, who is creative faculties, who are critical thinking faculties are being developed, they are just going to have a field day. Because now they're going to be back in fashion. You will really need people who can create, because the rest AI can do for you.
So there are two schools of thought, right? The first is saying that we're overhyping the generative application. The other side is saying we're underestimating the potential scope that AI can solve. Because in the physical world, we did not use AI as much as we have used in the software world. So who's wrong here?
It's hard to pick. I'm comfortable. It's like, let's pick an example. That's easier. Right? Let's talk of a typical SaaS environment where you operate. I've worked in that world. Think of somebody who used to run a corporate communication job. Just think of what AI is doing today and think of a large size SaaS organization which needed 5 people to manage their communications. How many people do you think would need 5 years from now? Maybe one of them. Maybe none, maybe one of them. But then one of them will have to definitely elevate their level of skill to be able to better run the whole communication department than the AI engines. Today, they could just do a mediocre job about it and get away. It just has to look a little smarter than what me and you can write. A little more politically correct than what me and you can write. But it'll have to be doing. So that's one use case. Take use cases then in another, say, a customer success job. Well, you could say there's a lot of relationship building in this. Not much is going to be disrupted by AI because you still need a human being to be convincing somebody that this is your use case, this is your value realization, this is how you can do it. I think those are going to get disrupted in a slightly different way. But HR rules, hiring rules, imagine the army of talent acquisition people that we used to have to scan through thousands of resumes to get to 5 or 10 walk-ins. A lot of this will be gone. So that's how I see role by role. I think it's going to get impacted separately.
Yeah, but I feel that the world is still not picking sides because they don't know which side will win. That's why everybody's swaying in and saying, okay, this also is possible, that also is possible. But I would tend to kind of pick a side.
Why is this? depending on which bias you have. Like my bias is it is going to be good for mankind, and this is my bias. I could be so totally wrong. It's going to be good for mankind because there have been such disruptions before. When we went into mobility, internal combustion engine run mobility, everybody thought it's the doomsday. When you started to take intercontinental flights, people thought, oh, this is going to change. I have seen this world coming from the time when we used to have rotary phones in India. In fact, the interesting funny incident, I'll tell you, I showed my daughter a rotary phone the other day and saying, this is how you used to dial people. She said, you must be lying. There's no app on Internet. So they don't understand that the world of phones existed without apps. Now, for somebody who has used a rotary phone to make a call, I understand the technology of calling somebody has gone from A to Z. That's how much jump I see with AI, if that's a good example.
Yeah, that's one. I would say, look, people need to interact with AI. And today, AI can only give you as good as an output as the input is, right? What skill I see today is overhyped. Prompting is an overhyped skill. How you are trying to get output from the AI engine is overhyped. But it's a very simple thing. People are not trying to simplify it and complicate it. Because if you see the interaction of normal people with apps, when they have an app on their mobile, the way we interact with the app is actually trying to get the best out of the app. And I'll give you a very silly example. On the Big Basket app, when you try to search something and you put too many words without waiting, it doesn't show the correct list of SKUs. But if you pause between, keying in the value, you will see a much better result. Now, this is a learning which we get by interacting with the app, right? So, the world is swaying into, okay, these are the industrial use cases, enterprise use cases. I'm talking about a B2C environment where the normal consumer can give you so many use cases of actually using AI. And the skill that is being overlooked is how do you train people better to give better inputs so that they get better outputs from any of these AI-enabled applications where the training of the model that you spoke about, right? We all use maps. The amount of input the map is getting. If everybody starts using every app that is there on the planet in a certain way, because there is no formal training of how to use a Book My Show or a Make My Trip or a Big Basket app, right? People just start using it by creating their profile. So that's one thing which I strongly believe is a scarcity today. And everybody's talking about AI, but enterprise use cases do hold good, as you said. There are certain roles which will get changed, and we'll talk about it as we move along. But for common man, how to interact with AI is a skill that we are yet to really focus on. And I think the next few years, if it becomes a curriculum in the school, that would be progress.
So I think you picked a great point, by the way. I think we got to distinguish between what is the science in AI and what is the art in AI. The science in AI is understanding how does the model work at the back end. How do you get the right output?
That's a technical side.
That's a technical side, right? At the end of the day, it's an algorithm-run mammoth back-end machine, right, which is working. But there is an art on it. Like the Big Basket example is actually a great one. Hold on to it. I'm going to steal this from you. You know what to search, then you will get the right search. That art is something that people will get trained on, and they need to get better and better at this. I was in the US recently. I asked the driver and said, "Are you a Lyft driver or are you an Uber driver?" He laughed at me. He said, "Neither. I use all the apps that are available, and I just pick at whatever is giving me the best fare." What a smart answer, right? He's actually figured it out that no one company is going to be solving his problem. He's figured the art in it. So I think slowly, consumers, like you said, are going to figure the art. And to add to your question on Big Basket, there's a funny thing that people don't realize still in India. We are a country where an Android phone top end and an Apple phone top end does not have any instruction manual reading material on it. But you buy a toaster, which is like ancient technology. It comes with a 10-page booklet how to use a toaster. You buy a washing machine. A guy will come home and tell you how to use a washing machine, install it. And I was thinking, how much rocket science can a washing machine be? Right? By the time, a lot of those things. Why? Because they know the user persona is somebody who needs to be told what to do, what not to do.
Correct.
In the phone, we assume that it is idiot-proof. You will figure it out the way you go along. Whether you are 16 or 60, you'll find your way through your Android or your Apple phone.
Yeah, that reminds me, I've heard one of my friends telling his mom, "पम नहीं फूट जाएगा अगर आप कुछ दबा देते हो." So keep trying. नहीं खराब हो गया तो the natural thing is the washing machine guy comes to and tells you how to use it so that you don't press a wrong button or do something silly that actually disrupts the whole mechanics of that machine. For a phone, it's a software. How wrong can you go and what? At max, you can delete an app. But there are so many.
Or you can call an ambulance by chance, which you don't need at that time.
Probably. Yeah. So let's burst some myths and talk a little more about what people are thinking. What's one popular belief about AI that you completely disagree with? And I'm going to challenge you multiple times through this conversation.
Sure. A lot of people feel that the job they're doing, a machine is going to completely take over the job. Never ever has it happened, right? And I think the biggest one is driverless cars. What we don't realize is cars is a very small use case of mobility in this world. Human beings need to move. We move much more than any generation in the past.
Right.
Look at our parents' generation and their parents' generation, and even 5 years ago, the amount of miles you did in a year, you're doing more miles. So what people are not talking about is mobility needs are getting bigger. So autonomous cars will chime in to cover some part of your mobility needs.
But that's not all.
But that's not all. That you got it, right? So the market will still have mobility needs which will be catered to.
You bring me to a wonderful personal use case, So I had somebody who was driving me around on this one. And I contemplated that, okay, now my number of trips within Bangalore is far less compared to my mobility needs outside of Bangalore.
Yep.
So is the driver the most important person that I should have in my team? Or I should, really use cabs for local commute, which is far more less, and repurpose the budget for mobility outside, right? And that is exactly so. If drivers get replaced, it's not going to impact a lot because I still need that flight or a bus or a train, whatever is my mode of communication. So mobility is not just about having the driver having a job. So people saying that jobs will go away. The robo vacuum has been there for a while.
Many years, yeah.
But I still have two people mopping my house morning, evening because I feel that's a much better way of cleaning.
Let's say on the same lines, let's take an example of saying how much housekeeping needs, and I'm taking on your example only, how much housekeeping needs is valid today and how much would be automated tomorrow. At the end of the day, in the average, we would say we live in 1,000 to 2,000 square feet of space. The amount of machines that you have in 2,000 square feet of space today, the amount of people needed to take care of those machines and the speciality of those housekeeping people is actually getting bigger. I mean, this is not just to say we have somebody who comes in just for ironing once a week. And these are the usual ironing we give away to somebody, but there's some we keep for that ironing person to come once in a week. And she's super efficient. She knows where the different ironing machines we have are and how to iron them. So I think people are not realizing the numerator will change, the denominator will change also. Right? So look at both sides of the game.
Absolutely. Who should actually be worried for it? So you're saying jobs are not going away. AI is not taking away jobs. But there are a set of people who should be worried in the next 3 to 5 years.
100% there should. People who do rinse and repeat jobs should definitely be worried. Anything which is rinse and repeat doing job should be worried. Like for example, checkered content. Like in your own memory, imagine a Walmart, right? They had 20 counters, everybody, one person at counters. Slowly they made 10 automated counters and 10 manned counters. And I have seen an Amazon Go store in Seattle where you don't have a checkout counter.
Yeah, but those are markets, right? That market has always been advanced. And let's talk about India. Who are the people who should be worried for the next 3 to 5 years? We are a 1.4 billion, 4 billion population. So Which are those jobs that should really be worried about?
I'll just take three examples here. Even today, our basic use cases are airports. Okay, this is an experience every day. You always see a line of people checking people in. And I always wonder, we don't need somebody to check us in. Most of it is hands-free check-in available without AI even today. Now that they know our travel patterns, they know how many times you check in bag, they know what is your frequent background. It is just one QR code away. So that rinse and repeat job where you have to ask 5 standard questions and 5 standard answers of 15 permutation, combination, 20 answers. Can you change my seat? Can you update my frequent flyer number? Gone. One kind of job. Second, a desk customer service job. You pick up the phone, read a screen, give an answer based on a decision tree which has been coded already. 90% chances are that decision tree will be taken over by an AI. 90% chance.
See, I and you both have worked for companies which sell CX solutions. So a lot of SaaS companies are trying the jobs that you're talking about, right? The SaaS companies are delivering solutions with a new cloud and OpenAI revolution of agents and the fully autonomous agents. Customer experience related to desk jobs has gone from year to year, right? There's a new template, new benchmark. But there are still humans required because most processes still integrate human intelligence or human actions for validation, whatever reason. So they may not completely go away, they may reduce in number. So what you're essentially saying is some of these jobs that you spoke about, they will still be there, but not as many as they are today.
So rinse and repeat jobs I spoke about. Now let's just take one more tangent and say where creativity is needed. Now there's a data point that I'm sure you have seen around you. How many people have you seen talk about mental health, emotional well-being, and personal well-being in the last 10 years compared to the last 20? That was not even an industry. You would go to a doctor for mental health if you were like really unwell.
No, there used to be like, if somebody is going to a psychiatric doctor, they will say, oh, something is wrong.
Something is really wrong.
You're really looked down upon.
Yes. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
So those tangents are going to go away where the output is not predicted. Where output is predicted and it's a rinse and repeat job. It's not a thinker's job. It's not a critical thinking. It's not creative thinking. It's not something that you have to build brand new. Or what I say, you have to use the science to build the art. Those jobs are definitely.
What are people overestimating right now with respect to AI? And sticking to this point of roles and jobs.
I think one of the overestimation is that banks, financial institutions, mobility, all of this is just going to have no humans working on it. That's so wrong. That's so wrong. Earlier, I think bank professionals or finance professionals were all about following the policy, procedure, doing this. I remember going from counter number 1 to counter number 3 to counter number 5 to get something done. Now, I don't need to go to the bank in the first place. And if I do, I meet a professional who has understood what my financial needs are. Totally, not that banks are less people. So that's, I think maybe we're just in that loop. So those are examples you're very clear in my mind and saying the landscape will change. The job landscape will change completely, but there will still be people needed to do new kind of things. Those roles, people who are graduating now, for example, if a 21-year-old is seeing this, if they need to know what are they going to do, 50% chances that they're going to work for a company which is not even started yet. Look at the names that you just took Cloud's name, Chat, OpenAI. 5 years ago, go to 2020 COVID time, technological listing. It was about SaaS, it was about the big four, it was about all of that. They were not there. Now, who's talking about that?
Nobody's talking about them. It's a completely different space.
Different paradigm, so that's.
Right. What I understand from you is AI is not a real threat, but being mediocre or practicing mediocrity will be a threat.
You use mediocrity, I'll use a doer's job. I think a doer's job is somebody who keeps doing it, and like rinse and repeat, I said. Doer's job is you are right. They are gone. In fact, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when those jobs will be gone. Now, a 2,000 people outfit, which has 500 people talking to customers, if those 500 people think they'll have a job for the next 3 years, all 500 are daydreaming. Because there will be possibly less than 50 people to do that. The 4 and 50 have to figure out how do they recap. I go back to this and saying, are they already thinking and saying, what do I now do to go ahead? Again, I go back to history to bring future because history is the best guide to future. Is when people joined banking and as a career some years back, they used to say, oh, he's a finance professional. Oh, there's not even going to be a finance professional anymore. What finance is going to change. Now, fintech is a new thing. Now, finance to fintech, now everything is technology at the underlying horizontal. You are just in a different field altogether.
So, is that like, let's talk about how work is actually changing and how people need to repivot. Being a generalist is no more considered safe.
Being a generalist has an extremely limited shelf life. Right? Take an example of an event organizer. You would like to call it a journalist job. I would like to call it a very specialist job.
What if COVID happens? The organizer has no job.
The event organizer has a skill of pulling people together and keeping them occupied for a certain number of hours. You take a very good you compliment with that. But that skill is not going away. The platform in which they use the skill, Pamela, is going away. Now, they may do it. Now, they may actually get a webinar together and people did marry online or whichever way, right? Zoom marriages happened during COVID. I'm not saying that's not what
do.
Yeah, a lot of things do. Court proceedings. I've been, invited to something which is like, you have to stand witness something. Oh, they'll dive into the court. Right? Who could have imagined that? So what I'm saying is, if they are evolving in their job, now every time I attend a function and I see a event organizer's job, I'm just, oh man, I never thought of this. Like this, never imagined, because they're evolving their game. So if you're not evolving your game, then you have an extremely limited shelf life on it.
Let's imagine I'm a 35-year-old working in India. I am in a divorce job. What should I stop doing immediately?
Look for your financial security. The time is not very good for you. Your job is going to get re-engineered, so to say, in a matter of months and not years. So the zoom out answer to that is everybody starts to work anything between 22 to 26, depending on how much education they do. And they typically give up working by around, say, their late 50s to mid 60s. Let's take that. So you have a shelf life around 30 to 35 years of work. That's typical. In that 30 to 35 years work, some people would say, I am a dentist. Take an example. In fact, I have a funny incident saying one of my cousins got into dentistry and she didn't take the seat. And I asked her, I said, people die for this one. She said, uncle, I don't want to spend the rest of my life putting my hand into other people's mouths and just be destined for it. I want to do something else. And she did something else in the end. That's, if you are a dentist, I think in 40 years, will you still be just a dentist? Or would your field would have evolved because of AI?
Yeah, it got me into thinking.
Right? Now think of that. Now, if you were an X-ray technician, 10 years ago, you would say, oh, you're an X-ray technician, so your job is secure. Now, maybe we don't need X-ray. Maybe a remote camera will just sense it and an AI engine will tell you whether everything is wrong. The whole radiology department will be changed. So those 40-year careers are dead. Maybe I'm making a big statement, but I'm very clear that everybody has to go reinvent. In fact, I have my own theory and I could be, I'm just old and therefore I make my own theorems. We used to go to college, study, and be gainfully employed for the rest of our life. I think we'll have to come out with a social system and saying, you learn, you apply your learnings, then take a break. You don't have to go to like Japan or Himachal to get a break, but maybe go back to university or a learning, or maybe even peer learning and learn something. And then come back and then be gainfully employed for another 10 years and then another one until you fade away.
So that is a good segue into my next question. In the next 3 to 5 years, if 40-year careers are no more the truth, what would the top 10% performers look like?
So the top 10 performers, and okay, my answer on this is the top 10 performers were a little mathematical for a lot of companies and saying if you met all your goals, if you exceeded all your goals, you were extremely likable by a lot of people, you were considered top performer. I would say a top performer would be a person who continues to evolve their game and stay on the top quartile. That would be a top performer and not somebody who aced their goals and numbers for 3 quarters in a row.
Let's pick up an industry or role and...
Let's pick up SaaS. Why not? Let's come to here and say somebody who met their quota constantly for 3 years, you think has a career? In my view, no. Because that quota of what they're selling, the whole proposition of the product will change, the market will change, the paradigm will change. And in the new paradigm, in the new market, maybe they'll not be the top guy.
Yeah, could be. Because you really opened up a big question. The whole SaaS architecture is changing, right? The whole theory that a user is sitting in front of a screen and using a SaaS application is no more true, because this user itself is changing. It could be an agent who has a much larger surface area to access with respect to using APIs to pull any sort of data. So the whole concept of composable architecture and open architecture
Correct.
is threatening this whole whole performance definition of what an account executive's role will be. You'll still need people, but what they will sell is going to be a question.
You will always need people to sell because humans will still need conviction. And
People buy from people.
People buy from people. People buy ideas. People buy convictions. And that's more important. And they sometimes need a person. You don't need a salesperson to sell your tag heuer or a bear garden or that kind of a watch. Maybe a tag heuer is a better example. You get pulled to a tag heuer. So to your original question, a top performer is who can build a tag heuer and is not able to sell a tag heuer. If you can evolve from getting your numbers and then also creating a space and re-evolving yourself. So what I look at people when I interview, and that's been my trade, and I think Amazon taught this really well, saying you've got to look at learnability. And within learnability, the big problem that I see, and this is where I'm more critical, is that people are not vocally self-critical about what they don't know. Once upon a time in a workplace, and still these days, if you were to walk in a meeting and say, I don't know about this, I don't understand this will look bad on you. And I think I love people who are able to say, in fact, the first conversation I had with you, I could see that you could pick aspects in your personality and saying, oh, this is where I'm great, this is where I'm actually not so great. This is great self-reflection. Those are skills which will take you for a long term. This is what I absolutely was amazed in saying, wow, this is good. That is something which will come back in fashion. That's how I see top performance to be.
So we are in an era where we have enormous amount of information, right? Overload. Why do people still feel stuck? They have access to everything.
Our cognitive bias towards information. Most of the folks who are cluttering themselves with information have given exams in school where knowing, getting information, writing it down on a piece of paper gave them success. So go back and remember your 12th class exam. You had to mug up everything and write it down on a piece of paper, and that was considered intelligence.
Yes.
That concept is dead.
But it's still there, right?
But still schools do it that way. But I have a counter argument to that. Now, you have to check people not for input versus output. Like I told you so many concepts and frameworks. Now you've got to remember it and write it down on a piece of paper when I asked you that. The same people are now gathering information from everywhere. Like they're going and downloading this. Their ability to declutter is the best. And the example I'll give you has nothing to do with corporate life. You know why I think poetry is the easiest way to relax in life? Is because poetries are percolated philosophies. A philosopher would write a book. I mean, I like Nietzsche, my favorite. Nietzsche would write you a book and give you 20 concepts. Or you can go to Anita Fazli and read 4 lines and he would say exactly the same thing and Nietzsche saying in different way. So percolation is an art that people will have to learn after the AI advance. And I'm so happy about it. Actually, in a sarcastic way, I'm looking at this world and saying, good. Now all these people who used to mug information and give it to you are gone.
Information is no more than leverage.
Information is no more the leverage. The right information will always be the leverage. You still need a doctor to see a patient, see the X-ray, the MRI, and saying, this is wrong. The doctor has the same information as a lot of other people, but their experience will tell them that A plus B plus C and the possibilities in the data in his head will tell you the right diagnosis. And I would still go to a doctor who's 50 plus because they've seen more patients than somebody who's just come out of college.
You brought in a doctor's example. My next question is quite unrelated, which doctors really don't know about. But LinkedIn, let's talk a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure.
Too many of us use LinkedIn.
Yeah.
What, 1.3 billion people on LinkedIn? Is it really helping people grow or is it confusing them?
I don't want to quote it, but there is a...
No, you need to take a stand.
So there is a Gulzar poetry which says, हम सबको सब अच्छे लगते हैं, हम सब आईने, which means that we like each other because everybody is like a mirror. Everybody has got such a picture perfect point of view on LinkedIn that it seems so sugar coated and tasteless. I actually never find it interesting. I could be a dumb one who doesn't find LinkedIn interesting at all, especially the posts. I go for posts which are slightly more real in nature, which are slightly more towards political incorrectness, which are slightly taking a stand. So I'm leaning on that. I think we just copying each other a little bit too much. And over templatization of life, that LinkedIn will have this kind of language, Instagram will have these kind of blurbs and these kind of acronyms, and Facebook will have these kind of pictures. These are all templates we created. That's why I don't find, I don't know if that was the answer you're looking for, but LinkedIn is just for me to know if I know somebody really or I don't.
You partially answered it, but it's an unavoidable demon, right? You are in a professional world. You want to stay relevant.
Yes.
You need to exist on LinkedIn. The next thing a new employer asks is, when they validate your credentials, they try to see you have a profile on LinkedIn or not. It's like you cannot choose not to have it.
True.
But how do people decide whom to ignore?
My counter argument to that is pick up 5 people that you really appreciate as a leader in life and go to their resumes. They are not picture perfect resumes that everybody is trying to make. These days, there's a new trend of going to the top colleges in US and doing a 5-day course and putting it on LinkedIn and saying, I have been to this college. And I'm saying, okay, does that change you as a professional? Will that make you a better leader? And do that test with 5 leaders, 50 leaders. They don't have perfect resumes. Nobody's asking Mark Zuckerberg or Michael Dell and saying, did you get a perfect CGPA, a GPA, or whatever the score is? Nobody caught. So I think this chase of perfection, or the window has to look super well dressed, that I think is deadly.
So what you're essentially saying is, let's not ignore anybody. Let's choose whom we choose to follow.
Not only that, but look at people who have good trajectories. Trajectories come with time. So I don't know if most people know that, but in Apple and in Amazon, they look at how you self-learned and built a trajectory and how many times you failed in your trajectory. In fact, people who have never failed or never had a gap or never had something wrong done to them and they have not recovered out of that, how do you know that they can actually do good change management or lead people? So I would say stay away from those super good looking perfect things.
Okay, that's a great answer. Now, let's look at a little bit of an identity split, right? Who we are at work and who we are in our personal life. Why are people so confident at work but completely unsure outside of it? You have observed this.
I have observed this. I have a point of view which may not be very popular in this. There used to be a thing called work wear and home wear. What that means is that you will wear something to go to work to look a certain way. We still do that. But there was also a time where women would usually wear a sari to go to work and there'd be a sari to go to a wedding and all that, which is understandable. Problem is that gives you a lot of veneer on your life. That you have to get up, look a certain way, talk a certain way, wish everybody good morning. Why doesn't the wishing good morning start with your apartment with the ironing guy and your maid servant exactly the same way? And this is okay for the first 5-10 years of your career. By the time you get to your mid-30s and mid-40s, you will lean into political incorrectness like me and saying, why should I wear 2 different personalities? And that will show your leadership style. If you are too sugar-coated, too veneered, too trying to be somebody who has to look like that. And this simple example is, if I tell you for the rest of your life, I have to wear a tie, oh God forbid, or you have to wear a pointed heel, would you like it? No, you can't have a one personality. So I think people should invest more time now in self-reflection, being the one omni personality. Like omni is a new word, right? Omni channel around that. Be one personality who is just the right person. And when you're in office, you're exactly like this. Maybe you have to follow a little bit of policy and procedure and saying, yeah, you can't say this or can't do this, which is okay. You can't your feet on the table at the office and sit like that. That's bad manners. You should do that at home too. Right? So when people carry all these false personalities, that's where they actually one day fall off the cliff and not able to take. And that's why so many people are sometimes seeking advice. And sometimes when you meet them out of office, like, oh, are they really the personality that I need? That I have a big disconnect with people.
So does it mean, are we all playing roles instead of being true to ourselves?
We were told to play roles because the reason why our parents wanted us to be very good at work is they don't want you to be poor. They don't want you to be jobless. So you had to wear that veneer very, very well. It's exactly like this. Your bedroom in your house is not always as tidy as your living room is because somebody can come in your living room anytime. So everybody said, keep the living room very tidy. So you have to keep all places in your home tidy. That's how the example I would take.
I'm still going to ask the next question I have. Is authenticity even is it even practical in a corporate setting? Like if I try to be true to myself, am I really making myself so vulnerable that people can bulldoze me?
I think there's a right word in English is victim or Hindi is called Gogi of being authentic at workplace. You will possibly lose some promotions. You will possibly lose a lot of awards. But trust me, what matters is will you have a happy life later on? The simple test for that is, ma'am, you have worked for a long time and professionals work a long time. If you ever walk into an airport or a mall and you come across somebody that you have to avoid making an eye contact with, then that is something that you should have done in the first place in life. There is nobody in my career that I would not be super comfortable talking to if they're sitting next to me in the flight and I have to spend the next 5-10 hours with them. Because you have to live with your conscience for far longer than what you have to live with your payroll and your job title.
So let's switch gears a little bit. Let's talk about work-life balance. Do you think it's real?
So this work-life balance thing is a new thing. When was it not work-life balance? When was it not a reality that everybody had to manage? It's just that we have now tried to push focus on it. Let me just ask you a question. Look at your mom. How has she balanced things all across your life? We have seen it from day one of your life till today. Everybody has balanced the way they speak, the way they manage things, their daily chores, when they go out. Everybody balances. Balancing is an art. Balancing is not a science. Balancing is not 4 hours of work, 6 hours of rest. How can you balance? If I just tell you, okay, 2 hours is beach time and 6 hours I'm going to yell at you. Will that work at all? No. So it's balancing is I would say a practice that somebody has to build. It has got nothing to do with how many hours of work and how many hours to commute and how many hours to come back. It's a practice again. And this is connected to the earlier point I made of self-reflection. It's if you are able to self-reflect and manage. People do, I must make a compliment that some people do it better than others and some completely fail at it.
Okay, so now we're talking about work-life balance. We know balance is a very personal definition. It always was a reality. It's not a new thing. It's more about how to lead your personal and professional life. Now, coming back to the professional side, office politics, right? A lot of us are very curious to learn. Can you succeed without playing office politics?
You can't live without office politics. The simple thing is, okay, again, I'll go zoom out and then zoom back into your question. We sometimes forget that fundamentally we are hunter, gatherers, procreators, survivors. That's a fundamental job. That mankind definition has not changed. We are still hunting, we're still gathering, we're still procreating, and we're still surviving. Those 4 basic traits of a human being, why they're on the top of the food chain, is not going away. Whether you see an Uber driver or see a Fortune 500 company CEO, look at their life closely. They are hunting for more money. They are gathering more money. either to give away to a foundation or just pay their EMI for their car. They're procreating, making sure that they have somebody to carry their name, and that's also a human tendency. And also surviving. Like one fine morning, they should not fall off or they should not, go away. That carries into work, and that is why there is politics. It will always be there. Now, the only way I have survived, or I think, is the one mantra: you should always have a deterrence value. Otherwise, you will get killed. Now, how to build a deterrence value is a combination of things. You should know how your team is loyal to you, how your work is above mark, and how you manage the ecosystem and you're able to read people, read the room. Then you can possibly keep your head above the water and survive. But you'll have to keep building that deterrence value. And I must say, it's more difficult for women than men because it's very hard for them to build the deterrence value very easily.
Avoiding office politics is a big mistake, isn't it?
You can't avoid office politics. Everybody is a hunter-gatherer survivor there.
So then why are you not admitting that politics is a skill?
Politics is a human skill which carries to the workplace. Okay, take work out of this moment. People who don't work, don't go to a typical corporate organization. Are they not handling politics?
Yeah.
They are. The way you need to handle it in the corporate framework is a little different. And that is why I say building your own deterrence there is a little different. That's the issue. You can't live without it. That's a reality.
Then why is it not mainstream in schools? Why are kids not taught how to?
Okay, so there is no BSc degree in emotional engineering. No.
Mm-hmm.
That you got to tell a child at the age of 15 that the Titan watch shows you time and an Apple top-end watch shows you time, and so does a Patek Philippe shows you time. But there is a time when you have to buy an Apple or a Titan and a Patek Philippe. Wait for your time to come. They think that Patek Philippe is success and Titan is not success. Fundamentally, not giving the emotional education to them and saying, at the end of the day, the function of the watch is to show you time. That's how I explain to my kids, so maybe that's not a good example.
You remind me of a very famous quote once a leader told me, he was sales head of APAC. He said, the watch you're wearing tells other people how your time is.
He's translated that from Hindi कि घड़ी आदमी को समय नहीं बताती, आदमी का समय बताती.
Bilkul. You got it right. Yeah. Let's do a rapid fire before we close. Okay. And don't overthink it. You just have to pick one.
My thinking faculties are extremely average, so please don't expect thinking from me.
Specialist versus generalist.
Specialist.
Stability versus optionality.
Optionality.
Money versus meaning.
Meaning.
Corporate versus creator.
Creative.
AI user versus AI builder.
AI builder.
Passion versus practicality.
Passion.
Wow. You did well. Okay, but why passion?
Purpose of life. Why do you live?
I thought you are very practical.
Oh, I seem like that. I carry that veneer, but I'm passionate about certain things. If you like mangoes, and I keep sending you PowerPoint presentations every day and saying pineapples are good, can I convince you that pineapples are good? Mangoes is passion, right? You love it. You build a passion for it. So it's very hard to undo the purpose that you have identified for yourself.
If I asked this question 10 years back, would you have answered it same?
Okay, this is super important. I'm going to be very practical about this. I think every 5 years, if I don't look back and call myself an absolute idiot, then I know I'm not evolving. When I was 18, I thought I knew it all. By the time I got 25, I said, what an idiot I was at 18. I'm going to turn 56 in August, and I'm telling you, I still tell myself I was an absolute idiot 5 years ago. This is evolution to me. So those answers and those rays and those occasions are the right answers because I had that evolution on the framework at that time. Today, I may have a different answer.
Okay, so let's, a wonderful conversation needs to come to a close. But before we close, Manish, if someone is 35 years old, having difficulty dealing with office politics, internally confused, I'm adding more dimensions to it. What's one thing they should do next after listening to this podcast?
3 things. First of all, identify your superpowers. Ones that you are naturally good at, ones you've acquired. Sharpen the ones that you are naturally good at. Keep them inside your pocket like your private watch. And the ones you've acquired as superpowers, sharpen them, make them future proof. That's the first thing you need. Number two that you need to tell yourself and train yourself in saying, everything changes with time. Every cell in our body changes in 7 years. In 7 years, all the paradigms that you believe in today are going to be absolutely useless paradigms. You would laugh at this thing. So wait for that time to go. Plan for 7 years and execute to it as well as you can. And the third I believe in is that you can only do so much happens to you. And we were talking about it today. Make sure you do the best, but also brace for impact. Like, when the plane is about to crash, they call it what the movie Captain Sully, right? He just said one thing to everybody in the plane: brace for impact. Things will happen.
You can't control what's going to happen.
You can't control what's going to happen.
Thank you so much for these golden nuggets of wisdom, Manish.
It's old age, nothing else.
Yes. 5 years back, you were not this.
Exactly. 5 years later, you can record this and tell her, I will tell myself I'm an absolute idiot.
So if you do this 5 years later, you would have a different Manish giving you a different piece of advice.
I hope I live that long, but yeah, we'll come.
Oh, you will. I'm sure you will. Longevity is another topic for another day.
For another day.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk to you. This is always a great conversation. Thank you so much.
If this conversation made you pause, even briefly, then it did its job. Leadership isn't built through answers alone. It's built through better questions, practiced over time. If you would like more conversations like this, subscribe to the channel. And if there's a question you're wrestling with right now, leave it in the comments. That's often where the next conversation begins.